Lovely and welcome to Fair Rugby on Fair Sport for today's Rugby Championship Round 1 review. Advantage Springboks, advantage New Zealand. Two big victories for those two sides. We'll go toe-to-toe this weekend in Auckland. Should be an absolutely brilliant encounter. Argentina, Australia looked very off the pace. Argentina characteristically do start slow. There is an issue with the fact that they don't get their squad together for very long before they start, and preparation always seems to be an issue for them. And Australia, obviously, first game under Eddie Jones, very underwhelming. It was a good Australian side on paper as well, and people were very much expecting and looking forward to an exciting clash. But that just wasn't really what we saw in the end, was it? With the Boks absolutely decimating them, putting on 43 points, which was pretty unexpected, I think, even for Bok fans. So before we look at exactly what went down, how the table is looking, and some of the stats from the weekend, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Right, so as I said, South Africa 43-12 against Argentina, and then New Zealand 41-12 against Argentina. So pretty similar score lines. And so South Africa leading the Rugby Championship table by just the solitary 2 points difference. That is how the table currently looks. It'll come down to this weekend, won't it? If South Africa beat New Zealand, you've really got to think that South Africa at home against Argentina in that final weekend should be able to get enough. So a win this weekend would probably pretty much secure, we'll put sort of one end on the trophy, especially because Australia, for whatever happened this weekend, often managed to pick themselves up and play very well when it comes to sort of the Bledisloe Cup. So you do expect them to be a lot better in that sort of that New Zealand test here. But I also want to have a look at some of the stats. I'm interested to see exactly where some of the games were won and lost. I'm just busy sorting that out there. And let's look at it. So these are some of the team stats. So New Zealand scoring the most tries of the weekend with 7, but South Africa scoring 6 tries. Argentina, Australia both with 10 apiece. Look at some of the clean breaks. Who would have thought that South Africa would have 12 clean breaks, almost more than double the next best, which is New Zealand. Quite cool. Same with the carries. Far more carries from South Africa. As I said, we didn't kick as much as we often did. Argentina kicking quite a lot out of ball in hand. Look at meters carried. Once again, South African dominating, but again, almost twice the amount. So there's a whole completely different game plan that we saw from South Africa this weekend. Defenders beaten more. I mean, it's if you look at sort of stats that show an exciting brand of rugby or an exciting game to watch, these are sort of the stats where you kind of want to top things. Obviously, the defense was very good in the second half, and I think that generally, it was all right, except that as soon as they missed those 1 or 2 first-time tackles, all of a sudden New Zealand were in behind, and then they couldn't really cope. South Africa had the lowest tackle percentage won. Now, this is an interesting thing because we do function with a rush defense, which means that generally our tackle stats are pretty low. As we've said numerous times, it's all about making the hit. It's about stopping momentum rather than actually completing the tackle. In terms of the lineouts and the set piece, South Africa are a very dominant set piece team, and yet the lineouts were dreadful this weekend. New Zealand set piece functioned pretty well, as did Australia's lineouts. If you look at some offloads, for example, all tied up there at the top there. Scrums won though, so this is an interesting one as well. I mean, I've been quite I've criticised the All Black scrum for not being as good as I think previous generations. So this was a big step forward, I think, for them. The fact that they did dominate the Argentina scrum. South Africa scrum also pretty solid, so I'm very keen to see what the scrum battle will look like this weekend. Scrum Blacks won. That's always pretty hard, but South Africa breakdown pretty good. And then Australia with 2 yellow cards, Argentina with 1. If we look at some individual player stats, and this is going to be obviously, it's week 1, so not too much to read into it. But RNC with a hat trick was pretty impressive. But let's look at some of the carries, shall we? I mean, Andre Hastings with 17, LaRue with 15, PSF Victoria with 13. As I said, 3 South Africans at the top of that list there. RDCV, as you can imagine, carrying a lot for the All Blacks, as well as Pablo Matera. We look at clean breaks. Curtly Lawrence, as you kind of expect. Kane and Moody up there. Corey Betts played pretty well. Rico Awani had a much better game at outside centre. I'm still not convinced that's his best position. Defenders beat Corey Betty, Esther Hazen van Staden leading that sort of charge there. If we look at meters carried, Moody with 145, Liebach with 131, Esther Hazen, 4 South Africans right at the top there. Narawa had a very good debut for New Zealand and is up there. And then tackles, in terms of the big tackles over this weekend, as you'd imagine, Argentina players right at the top there with Rodrigo Bruni making a lot. Julian Montoya played very well. Thought Jay Slipper put in a pretty good defensive effort. So those are the sort of the big tacklers. We're looking for the big South African tacklers. And no South Africans actually featured in the top 10, which shows you how much of the ball they did have. So it's an interesting round this weekend, and I think that we can read very little, maybe even into the two games. It looked like an Argentina side which in the first half just didn't know what they were doing. Second half, they looked far better, far more competitive. And if that's the Argentina side for the rest of the tournament, then they'll be much tougher to beat. Similarly, Australia were pretty poor, and it's difficult to understand, was South Africa that good? Was Australia that bad? Is it somewhere in the middle? So it was an interesting round, but I think this weekend will really sort of be a bit more of a telltale sign as to where the teams really are. Let me know what you thought about the action, how much we can read it down in the comments below. Please do smash like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steven. I'll chat to you soon.